In the heart of North America, two nations stand tall, their destinies intertwined by geography, history, and a shared commitment to the values of freedom, democracy, and the pursuit of prosperity. Canada, the United States' neighbors and allies, have long been held up as shining examples of what can be achieved when the human spirit is unleashed and allowed to flourish. Yet beneath the surface of this shared narrative, a troubling reality is beginning to emerge, one that threatens to undermine the very foundations of the Canadian dream and cast a shadow over the future of an entire generation. For years, Canadians have taken comfort in the belief that their country offered a higher quality of life and a more equitable distribution of wealth than their American counterparts. They pointed to their universal healthcare system, strong social safety net, and commitment to multiculturalism as evidence of a society prioritizing the well-being of all its citizens over the ruthless pursuit of profit. However, as the 21st century unfolds, a different picture is beginning to emerge, one in which the average American is increasingly better off economically than their Canadian neighbors. In 2022, when home prices in both nations reached record highs, the average home price in Canada was still over $30,000 higher than in the U.S., even though Canadians had a median income of $20,000 lower. As per healthcare coverage, 2 in 5 Canadians, or 41%, approximately 12.8 million adults, say they had difficulty accessing or could not access one of 5 critical health services: non-emergency care, emergency care, surgery, diagnostic testing, and specialist appointments. 37% of Canadians are confident of the country's healthcare coverage, while 61% are not. Meanwhile, 70% of people in the United States are confident, while 1/4, or 25%, are not. In addition, Canada's housing prices are much higher than the USA's, sometimes with an average price twice as high. Canada's benchmark price is significantly higher at $757,300 compared to the USA's $422,000. While Canada often garners praise for its quality of life, there's a compelling case to be made that the United States holds the crown as the ultimate destination for those seeking prosperity, opportunity, and fulfillment. In this exploration, we'll unravel the layers of misconception and unveil the hidden gems that make the United States not just a land of dreams, but a tangible reality for those seeking a life of abundance and possibility. At first glance, the similarities between the two countries are striking. Both are affluent, industrialized nations with highly educated populations and a shared cultural heritage. Both have seen their economy shift away from traditional manufacturing and resource extraction towards service-based industries and knowledge work, and both have grappled with the challenges of globalization, technological change, and an aging population. But beneath the surface, there are significant differences that are increasingly working in America's favor. Perhaps the most obvious of these is the sheer size and scale of the American economy. With a population of over 330 million and a GDP of more than $25 trillion, the United States is an economic juggernaut that dwarfs Canada in almost every measurable way. This vast domestic market gives American businesses a built-in advantage, allowing them to achieve economies of scale and invest in innovation in ways that simply aren't possible for their Canadian counterparts. But it's not just the size of the American market that sets it apart, it's also how wealth is distributed within it. In 2021, the median household income in the U.S. was $75,149, while in Canada, the median household income was $54,074, or $73,000 Canadian. This gap has been widening in recent years, with American incomes growing at a faster rate than their Canadian counterparts. In fact, between 2000 and 2020, the median household income in the United States grew by $67,470 to $76,660, while in Canada, it grew to $70,643. Also, based on the latest data across G7 countries, Canada has the highest level of household debt to disposable income, reaching over 180% compared with about 100% in the United States and Germany. So, what explains this growing divergence? Part of the answer lies in the different ways that the two countries have approached economic policy in recent decades. While Canada has prioritized stability and redistribution through a robust social safety net and high levels of government spending, the United States has taken a more market-oriented approach, with lower taxes, less regulation, and a greater emphasis on individual initiative and risk-taking. This difference in approach is reflected in the structure of the two economies. In the United States, small and medium-sized businesses account for a larger share of employment and economic output than in Canada, where large corporations and the public sector play a more dominant role. American businesses also tend to be more productive than their Canadian counterparts, thanks in part to higher levels of investment in research and development, talent, technology, and human capital. According to data from the OECD, labor productivity in the United States, measured as GDP per hour worked, was $75.50 in 2022, compared to just $53.70 in Canada. This gap has been widening in recent years as American businesses have continued to invest heavily in productivity-enhancing technologies and processes, while Canadian firms have lagged behind. In fact, from 2001 to 2021, the United States observed a moderate deceleration in labor productivity to 2.0% per year, while Canada's growth rate fell to 0.9% per year. This difference in productivity has significant implications for workers in both countries. When businesses are more productive, they can afford to pay higher wages and offer better benefits to their employees. They can also invest more in training and development, helping workers acquire the skills they need to succeed in an increasingly knowledge-based economy. This in turn can lead to higher levels of job satisfaction, lower levels of turnover, and a more dynamic and innovative workforce overall. But it's not just in the private sector where Americans are pulling ahead. Even in areas where Canada has traditionally been seen as a leader, such as healthcare and education, the United States is increasingly offering a better value proposition for many citizens. Take healthcare, for example. While Canada's single-payer system is often held up as a model of equity and efficiency, the reality is more complicated. According to data from the Fraser Institute, a Canadian think tank, specialist physicians surveyed reported a median waiting time of 27.4 weeks between referral from a general practitioner and receipt of treatment, longer than the wait of 25.6 weeks reported in 2021. This year's wait time is the longest recorded in this survey's history and is 195% longer than in 1993, when it was just 9.3 weeks. Ontario reports the shortest total wait in Canada at 20.3 weeks, while Prince Edward Island reports the most extended at 64.7 weeks. There's also a great deal of variation among specialties. Patients wait the longest between a GP referral and neurosurgical procedures, 58.9 weeks, while those waiting for radiation treatments begin treatment in 3.9 weeks. This starkly contrasts with the United States, where wait times for most procedures are measured in days or weeks rather than months. Moreover, while Canadians often point to the high cost of healthcare in the United States as evidence of a broken system, the reality is that many Americans have access to world-class care that simply isn't available in Canada. According to a 2021 report by the Commonwealth Fund, the United States outperforms Canada on several key measures of healthcare quality, including access to specialists, use of advanced medical technologies, and overall patient satisfaction. Of course, this isn't to say that the American healthcare system is perfect. Far from it. Millions of Americans still lack access to affordable, high-quality care, and the cost of prescription drugs and other medical services remains a major burden for many families. However, for those who do have good insurance coverage, either through their employer or through private plans, the United States offers a level of choice and quality that is simply unmatched in Canada. Education is another area where the United States is increasingly outpacing its northern neighbor. While Canada has historically had a solid public education system with high levels of funding and a commitment to equity and accessibility, the reality is that many Canadian students are struggling to keep up with their American counterparts. The state of global education was given a bleak appraisal in the Program for International Student Assessment, or the PISA, which is the first study to examine the academic progress of 15-year-old students in dozens of countries during the pandemic. The study found Canada's overall math scores declined by 15 points between 2018 and 2022. According to PISA, a drop of 20 points is losing out on a full year of learning, and Canada's math score dropped by an equivalent of 3/4 of a year of learning. During the same period, Canadian students' reading scores dropped by 13 points and science scores by 3, while American students held steady or even improved. This declining performance has significant implications for Canada's long-term economic competitiveness. In an increasingly knowledge-based global economy, countries that can produce highly skilled and innovative workers will have a significant advantage over those that lag behind. Suppose Canada is to remain competitive in the years ahead. In that case, it will need to invest heavily in education and training to improve outcomes for current students and provide opportunities for lifelong learning and upskilling for workers at all stages of their careers. Housing or real estate is another hot-button topic in these two countries. Housing and rental costs in the United States are generally more affordable compared to Canada. The median home value in the United States is around $346,000 relative to Canada's $646,134 Canadian, which is $487,540 in the US. In US dollars, The most expensive province in Canada to buy a home in is British Columbia, coming in at Canadian $964,246 per home on average. Homes in Canada appear to be about 19% more expensive after the currency conversion. The difference is largely driven by the larger land areas and less constrained housing supply in many parts of the U.S. compared to the relatively limited developable land in major Canadian population centers. Another contributing factor is the interest rate in Canada, which was close to zero for a while. This made buying a home more attractive and added more fuel to the lack of supply fire. But perhaps one of the significant factors contributing to the growing economic divide between Canada and the United States is the difference in tax policies between the two countries. While Canada has long been known for its high levels of taxation and redistribution, the reality is that this approach is increasingly working against the interests of ordinary Canadians. According to data from the OECD, the average Canadian worker faces a tax wedge, the difference between their gross and net earnings, of 31.9% compared to just 29.9% for the average American worker. This means that Canadians are paying significantly more taxes than their American counterparts, leaving them with less disposable income to save, invest, or spend on goods and services. Moreover, Canada's high levels of taxation have made it increasingly difficult for businesses to invest and grow, particularly in high-tax provinces like Quebec and Ontario. According to the Canadian government's website, the basic rate of Part 1 tax is 38% of taxable income, 28% after federal tax abatement. After the general tax reduction, the net tax rate is 15%. For Canadian-controlled private corporations claiming the small business deduction, the net tax rate is 9%. Meanwhile, the United States federal tax involves just a straightforward 21% rate. But it's not just businesses that are feeling the squeeze. High levels of taxation have also made it more difficult for Canadians to save for retirement, invest in their children's education, or build wealth over the long term. Of course, taxes are just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to economic opportunity and mobility. There are many other factors that contribute to the growing divide between Canada and the United States, from differences in immigration policies and labor market regulations to broader cultural attitudes towards risk-taking and entrepreneurship. However, what is clear is that the traditional narrative of Canada as a more equitable and prosperous society than the United States is increasingly being challenged by the economic realities on the ground. While Canada still has many strengths and advantages, including a highly educated workforce, abundant natural resources, and a robust social safety net, the reality is that the country is increasingly falling behind in key areas that are critical for long-term economic success. If you like this video, hit the like button and help us spread the word. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications on our latest news and analysis. In the meantime, check out one of these videos here to learn more. Thanks for watching.